Ryan Grubb has been axed by the Seahawks. We're going to talk to you about it today. That plus lots of other things. What's this mean for other coaches? How is Mike Mack going to wield his axe even further? We're going to talk about re-signings. We're going to talk about the season. We're going to talk about last night's game as well. But that's not even the hot topic anymore. All of that and more straight after this. Let's get into it straight away. And it's going to be an exciting pod. Back with a boom, Mitch. We had a couple of weeks off because we were both very ill. How are you feeling?
Better. I'm here. I made it. Miles better than I was. I was an absolute write-off for the last while, to be honest. But I'm back in the land of the living, and I've woken up to some news, a Seahawks win and a lot of news. So
honestly, I was working today. I had time on my lunch break to sort out the graphics, queue up the pod, thought, right, this is going to be a good one. We can discuss the game and what's going to happen. And then literally as I was getting ready to put my daughter to bed tonight, I checked X and everything started blowing up about Ryan Grubb. And I thought, we can't have a pod to review what was essentially a damp squib of a game. Let's have a pod to discuss Ryan Grubb and the other coaches. So for those of you just tuning in, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I'm pretty sure we'll have some comments and some questions regarding what we're going to be discussing. If you haven't already and you'd like to just support us, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We really appreciate it. We're growing as a community, and you can also be part of that community by joining our Discord as well. There, that's the one, that way, pointing the right way. Mitch, the master of the Discord, will pop that link in the comments as well, and it will be in there over the course of this pod. So, Mitch, we have spent this whole season going back and forth about Ryan Grubb. As a coach, I have said you can't fire someone after a year because it's not right. However, over the course of the season, my opinion had changed drastically. How did you feel about Grubb? Let's talk about him sort of before we got this news. Where were you at by the end of yesterday?
Well, there's been a theme. Mike Mack has said a few times in radio interviews. You know, he does his morning interview after games. And he'd said at least twice that I heard after different games. It may well have been more than twice. So in the comments, let me know if you've heard this as well. But he'd said that following games where they hadn't managed to get the offensive plan going, they'd have a meeting. Grubb and Mike Mack would have a meeting, talk about what went wrong, how they'll fix it going forward. What's the game plan for the next game? How are they going to make sure that doesn't happen in the next game? And then when the next game rolled round, something else got thrown in, and they just weren't able to put together what they planned, and they'd have to. So my question is, how many times can you sit with the same partner in crime? You know, the same, highly established member of your coaching team, plan, fail to execute, and keep repeating it. He must have lost faith that the system that Grubb was putting out there on game day and his ability to plan, implement, and adapt, all of his faith in those factors must have just been wiped out, because the first opportunity to cut him loose and commit to starting again, he took that chance. So that's where I'm more so than the play calling, more so than the good games, the bad games. Take that out of it. I think Mike Mack just lost faith in Grubb to be able to implement what they were talking about.
I agree completely. Thanks everyone for joining in. We've got to say it. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone as well. What a start to 2025, eh? I, I'm going to try and phrase this very amicably without swearing. So, what you said is spot on, Mitch. There's no two ways about it. He obviously lost faith, and I said this in a comment on Dan Vien's show, Seahawks Forever, and I think I said it on our pod. It just seems like every single press conference where Mike Mack was asked about the offense, he said, we want to focus more on the run. We want to be a physical team. And I think it's Grubb appear. I might be, this might not be true, but it appears like Grubb sits in a room with him and goes, yeah, completely agree. Yes, 100%. We'll focus on the run. We'll focus on the run. I'll make sure I script up our first drive, and then we don't score on the first drive all season. And he literally looks at Mike Mack down on the field and flips in the bird and goes, I don't care about your run game. I want to throw this ball. And that has been his undoing. We podcasters, fans for the Seahawks, have screamed it all season that we have not had enough consistency with the run game. With the running backs we've got, the caliber we've got, they've shown it. They just don't get enough ball. As a result, our O-line looks bad because they're constantly having to hold up on pass pro. Gino gets sacked too much. He makes silly decisions because he's under pressure. And unfortunately, it all does fall on the OC. In fact, no, it doesn't all fall there because no, it does. I'm checking myself there. It does, because the argument that he's got a bad O-line shouldn't matter.
Yeah,
if you have a bad unit or a bad player, as a good coach, you do something to counteract that.
Yeah, it's a brilliant opportunity. The bad O-line was a perfect opportunity for him to show understanding of how to lessen the impact, how to protect Gino when his line can't, how to get his running backs out there and establish the run game. Once you've posed a threat through the air, it should be easy then to start ripping off, yards with the run, because they keep throwing it and Gino's already got 200 yards in this game. We need to protect ourselves over the top. Oh, look, 5 yards with the running game. That you need to showcase. It's the perfect opportunity with a bad O-line to showcase your nous and your knowledge and everything to play around that and make the best of it. What we saw was almost negligence. It was like, well, we can't protect. Well, sometimes we went to the hurry up, which worked brilliantly because no one had time to get to the quarterback. And then we abandoned that halfway through the year. There were games we established the run, but never truly took advantage of play action to protect Gino. There was so many avenues that opened up for Grubb that he didn't take. And I'm not an OC and I'm not pretending to be either, but there were things that we were screaming at our television sets to say, why are we not doing this to protect Gino? Why are we airing Gino out? Like, Gino's either the hero or he's the villain every game, because whether we score points or not solely rests on, has he thrown 4 touchdowns or not? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're putting all of it on Gino, and sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. And guess what? It split the fan base because some people are protecting Gino, some people want him gone. It didn't need to be that way.
It didn't at all. It strikes me as pure avarice. I think that's the word. He was so sure of himself and his game plan that he went, I'm not going to deviate. This is what I want to do. This is what I think will win the game. And I think it was I'm just going to say, he just seems so cocksure about himself. He was just out there swinging it constantly. And that was exemplified in his press conference. How have you changed? Oh, I've not. I've learned things. I've not changed. Yeah. Sorry, what? Well, you are the man who gets the most grief from the Seahawks fan base because of how your scheme does not fit into games. You do not adjust We said earlier on the season that Mike McDonald managed to adjust his defense from one half to another, which really turned it round, and then he just turned the defense round after the bye week. Ryan Grubb did not take any opportunity to do that. Ryan Grubb just went, this is my way. This is how we're playing it. We'll beat some. I beat loads of people in college doing this. We'll do it in the NFL as well. Wrong. You are wrong, sir.
I'll play devil's advocate here, and I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Imagine, right? You've got these ideas of how you want to run an offense in college, right? You're making the step up to the NFL. The HC that hires you tells you what he envisages, right? And you think, you have the confidence in yourself to sit there and say, I can do that. I can genuinely do that. So you win the job based on that confidence that you can adapt your system to what your new HC wants. Then your plan for how you would do that fails, right? You get punched in the mouth. The NFL is a bit more competitive than you thought. Teams are stopping what you're trying to do, which is what your HC wants you to do. What do you revert to? What you know, airing the ball out. And I think the plans they drew up and the things he knew he needed to do, he couldn't do, like establishing the run game, because in a big way because of the O line. When he couldn't pull off what they'd agreed they would do every week, he had to resort to what he knew, which was leaning on Geno and playing air raid. And that is why, in my opinion, all year we've seen that. I don't think it's been a stubbornness to move away from his way of playing football. I just think that is his safe space to put himself in when the thing he's less sure about doing is failing.
But conversely, the safe space for one person is not the safe space for a team. So he can
definitely not for Geno.
Well, exactly. He can go, well, I'm really good at this, so I'm going to make everyone else do what I'm good at, even though it doesn't work for everyone else. And as a result, we have left points on the board. We have made some just peculiar calls at the line of scrimmage. We have not utilised our receivers. Jake Bobo scored his first touchdown of the year yesterday. And I was on our social medias last night tweeting and blue skying or whatever it was. And I was looking back at one point, and I don't think I've mentioned him catching that, maybe once, where I've done it like, a wild Jake Bobo has appeared out of nowhere. And that's about it. Apart from that, he just used him purely as a blocking wide receiver. 95% of the time, if Jake Bobo was in, you knew he was going to be blocking for someone. And Jonas, you're very right. Noah Fant did too. And
I was going to say that as soon as you were done, but he's beaten me to it.
that catch from Noah Fant, fair play to him. That was, well,
we paid $10 million for it, so I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's the most expensive touchdown in the league this year. And then you've got AJ Barner, who's come in. I saw a stat actually earlier on. AJ Barner, 1 season, 4 touchdowns. Noah Fant, 3 seasons, 4 touchdowns. AJ Barner, tight end 1, 2024-25 season.
It's different. It's slightly different because AJ Barner, people expect him to be blocking, and then suddenly, he'll rip off a reception and he's hard to stop. So when Fant's out there, no one's expecting him to just be there blocking. They expect him to be a target, so he's accounted for. But AJ Barner has shown that he can do both things well enough for us to be able to disguise that, which is great.
Which is what we need. And as Bryce from the Hawks on Rundown has just put down, Bryce, welcome in. Thank you very much, and congratulations on your 1K subs. First TD for Fant since 2022. Wow. And we paid him all that money. This will sort of lead on to conversations we will have. We have got a full off-season's worth of content where we will talk hyperbole. We'll have multiple people, guests on from our Discord, from just followers throughout social media as well. If you want a place to talk about Seahawks, you can come on here. That's what we're here for. I think we need to go back to the O-line as well. So So we're speaking about Grubb a lot, and obviously his downfall. I think there are going to be people dancing around to the tune of "Hey ho, the witch is dead," all around the Pacific Northwest. But with Grubb came Scott Huff, who affectionately, collectively, we have called Hub or Gruff, as they came as one. Now, he's a very highly rated O-line coach. He came from Washington with Grubb. If Grubb goes, do you think Huff could be on the chopping block as well?
I think Huff is on the chopping block. It's difficult to look at a guy who came in to improve an O-line and it regressed despite the investment into it, and not see him as being expendable. And also, when you consider he came in with the OC that just lost his job, there's also, that. Also, have a think about it. Does an OC come in who's got his own O-line guy as well? He may not lose his job immediately off the back of Grubb going, but he could definitely lose his job off the back of a new OC coming in with his own O-line guy. So I think very much, I think the chance of Huff staying with the Seahawks is probably about 10% at this point. I think it's that low. I think there's so many factors that will see him gone, and there's not enough work put in that's garnered respect for him to feel like he's safe in that role. I just don't think that he can be confident in keeping his job.
Yeah, I know. But I saw one of the Instagram accounts that we follow, the at 12 Talk Pod. If anyone is on Insta and wants to follow us as well, they were saying about John Schneider's philosophy of interior linemen always overdrafted, overpaid. And then it showed the PFF ratings, and I know they don't mean everything, for Laken Tomlinson and Charles Cross being in the 80s, who they were both, top 2-3 round picks. And then you had Lemire, Oluwatimi, and Lucas, who were all in the 60s for their grading. Now, even though Tomlinson has had a lot of stick from us, he's played over 1,000 snaps this year, and he's still getting an 80-odd%, 80-odd PFF grade. So I think it was like 80, so I can't remember, 80 something. But if they're highly drafted and they're scoring better, surely that then means that we need to start looking at drafting these interior linemen higher as well to get better production. And I think with Huff working with what he's got, even though they drafted Christian Haynes, I think Christian Haynes obviously wasn't the right fit for that scheme, and we put Lemire in, who has looked good. He's had his rookie issues, but I'm not sure what you're looking at or who's typing things to you.
Friend of mine's tuned in, and he said, "Damn that." No, it's a friend. Well, I was on Discord actually. He's just said, "Damn that stony face," and I realised I was doing my grumpy face that I always do on this pod. I had to crack a smile for my guy.
So I was looking at it, I was like, something's making Mitch smile. It's making me feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
So,
yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I like Huff. I like having a young coach that can help bring along these other players as well. But like you said, I do think that time may not be on his side with us, especially with the incoming new OC.
I low-key want to see him get a chance to stay. Actually, I said I think he's got a 10% chance of staying. I genuinely think it would be really good for us to extend that olive branch and just say, like, have another year. We'll put a bit more, investment in there. Keep doing what you're doing. Give him another year. I think it'd be a really sound move. Unless a really outstanding candidate emerges, I think that's a really good play.
Nice comment here from Gary. Huff is currently being evaluated. Oh.
Yeah, that's a little bit ominous, isn't it?
Is that like the Premier League manager? Their job is safe. It's like the kiss of death. No, you're being evaluated. Don't worry. It's just an evaluation. Yeah, we've already started packing your boxes. All right. Well, speaking of packing boxes, another coach that we should probably talk about, Jay Harbaugh. At what point does Mike McDonald go, actually, I don't owe the Harbaughs that much to keep their son or one of their sons on my roster, because our special teams in offense and defense, or returns and punts, have been awful. There's been very few bright spots. And I'm sorry, if the XFL can actually make some interesting plays in returns and be able to stop said interesting plays as well, why can't NFL players or coaches?
Yeah. Before I say anything negative about Jay Harbaugh and what we put out on tape this year, I really would highlight the fact that Jay Harbaugh's not the one dropping punts. So that was one of the
as
biggest
a coach. As a coach, though, you take all those players away and you just have training sessions with them on that. I do not care who you are. If I have a fullback in rugby who I know has got butterfingers under a high ball, I'm going to stand there with him for at least 30 minutes and just launch high balls up at him, because they need to get confident. They need to get it right. They get paid for it.
I don't think either Chenault or I've actually forgotten the name of our special teams ace that we had on our roster all year.
Oh, the one that we were whinging about. That's how inconsequential some players are. Yeah, please go on.
Someone in the comments,
so you guys can help us.
Yeah, that's awful, because I watched. Yeah, D Williams.
D Williams.
Yeah, D Williams. He was renowned for being a serious special teams contributor with his returns. He was not considered to be someone who had butterfingers. Laviska Shenault is not someone who had a record of dropping the ball. But I think once you've done it once or twice, the nerves can get to you and you become susceptible to it. One or two of those as well were really good punch outs and things as well. But the return game, I think it massively underwhelmed. But it was in a large part due to the ball security that we showed. And I also think at the beginning of the year, this one will be on Jay Harbaugh. I'm convinced that he'd set out a framework for what we attempt to catch for a fair catch and what we don't, based on hoping that the ball will bounce into the end zone and we'll get a touchback, rather than catching it within the 10. Because there were a lot of kicks that were ignored that punished us badly and pinned us back at the beginning of the year. And I think that was Jay Harbaugh's idea of being clever, not taking the safe the safe catch and opting for the upside based on stats. And I think we just got really unlucky with it, and we looked stupid. And it made the returner look like he was making bad decisions as well. Yeah, it made the receiver.
D. Williams was the one who caught every single bit of flack for it, because all he was doing was leaving them to go over his head. And if you remember, on every single pod where it happened, I said, look, I'm not being funny, but if you are catching a high ball, you need to get further back in order to ascertain where it's going to drop. Whereas he was standing sometimes on the 10, 15-yard line, anticipating it going over his head. And as we've seen, some punters can put so much backspin on that they can drop it on the 1-yard line and it will nip up and roll back. They're professional punters. That's what they're paid to do. They don't have to do anything else. Their job is to be able to kick a ball in various ways to put you under pressure. Luckily, we've got one of the best.
We do. Do you think there's an element of Jay Harbaugh seeing college punters and thinking that if he did plan for D. Williams to leave balls that were going to bounce inside the 10, which possibly is why he stood away from it. He was never intending to catch it, because he'd already seen the trajectory was taking it beyond him. He was on the 15-yard line. That's going to go into the end zone. Jay's told me not to catch that. And then suddenly the quality of the kickers and the backspin and slicing across the ball had meant that the kicking was not going to sail into the end zone as often as he thought it would. I don't know, we're a bit of a tangent here, but that does lie on Jay Harbaugh.
Oh, but it's a valid conversation to have, though, because again, that's just the inexperience. So I don't care if you are an NFL coach, if you're a college coach, anything, you have to be able to adapt to these things. And after 2 games, Jay Harbaugh should have gone, oh, wow, these punters who get paid millions and millions can actually put backspin on the ball, drop it within the 5-yard line, and it's not going to roll in all the time. It's actually going to nip back. How weird, anyone who's played with that weird egg-shaped ball, whether it be American football or rugby, knows that the bounce of the ball it's unpredictable. You can't say that's definitely going to go that way, because you can watch that thing hit the ground, and as soon as it hits the ground, you go, that's bouncing there. It could go a completely different way. So I think it's just inexperience, and it could be. It depends how much they value special teams. Does Mike Mack think special teams warrants having a proper special teams ace as a coach, or will he give Harbaugh a bit more time to come to terms with this? He didn't with Grubb.
Yeah, well, either way, one of our sides of the ball ended up looking quite polished at the end of the year, and it wasn't special teams or offense. One of them polished up and ended up looking fit for purpose, and the other two did not. So he is responsible for a lot of that.
And speaking to that, I mean, Mike Mack, I think a lot of people have been. Seahawks Twitter is the most toxic, ridiculous, and fun place to be at times, because people have got no idea what they're talking about. It's just like they engage these before engaging this. We lose a game. Mike McDonald's not cut out to be a head coach. Get him out. But then we've said from the start of the season, all we want to see is an upwards trajectory. Now, we wanted it from the whole team, but we could definitely got it from the defense. And you can see his thumbprint is well and truly on that. And I think by the end of the season, he's coming to his own as a head coach as well. And that is evident by how quickly he swung the axe to get rid of Grubb today.
Yeah. Well, if you look at an upward trajectory on defense and then look at the fact that we ended up with a similar record to last year, it's the regression on the other two sides of the ball that that's kept us around about where we are. If we just get a slight increase from either, we finish up 12-13 next year, and we're clearing that bubble into the playoffs. So which brings it back to Grubb losing his job. I think that is an aggressive and assertive way to say we intend to be winning, and this wasn't
that is the swinging your bigger weapon at the man who swings his big weapon around all the time in your face, and saying, I will knock you out of this building with it. And he's done it, and I've got a lot of time for it. I think he's just going to keep coming on leaps and bounds. He's got the respect of the locker room. The players want to play for him. Ernest Jones, who we'll get onto very shortly as well, has said he wants Mike McDonald to be his coach for the rest of his career. So if Jones can see that and he wants that, whether he's just saying it to get the contract or he's just saying it, or he's saying it because he actually means it, you see how the locker room reacts to him. You see how everyone talks about him. I know there's a fair bit of brown nosing that goes on with your head coach, because there's got to be, but they all seem quite sincere. Before we move on to Ernest Jones, I do think that we just need to highlight this bit. We are the official podcast of UK Seahawkers. So any UK Seahawkers that are watching for the first time, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. If you're not a member of the UK Seahawkers, Mitch and I are card carrier members. Have you paid your renewal?
Yes. I'm going to nod and say yes.
Yes, excellent. I have. I need to update this, but the 2025 memberships are open. It's still £12 for an individual member, £20 for a family of up to 4. And if you're outside the UK, it's £5 postage per member. You can pay via PayPal. Just put it at ukhawkfans12@hotmail.com. You get access to some amazing goodies, which I'll show you next. Social events, which we've got an update on. Yeah. You get 10% off at the Pro Shop, access to members-only competitions. You get things like a chance to win field passes for game days, a plethora of stuff. This year, we got a lovely bit of throwback garb, which I'm very happy about. That patch there is currently on my throwback jersey behind me. And next year, let's see what we get. But we did mention the social event. And for the last, I think all season, we've been saying, if you know anywhere in Glasgow, please let us know. It would appear someone knows. I do feel like I should be singing "O Flower of Scotland" with that flag in the background, but I won't put anyone through that. The UK Seahawks meetup in Glasgow has been confirmed for the 3rd of May 2025, so this year. The venue hasn't been fully confirmed, but we have been told that it is very, very close to the main central train station at Glasgow. So get your hotels booked, get your train tickets booked. Mitch and I will see you there, hopefully with more of the UK fans that we have in our Discord and that watch this. If you're not a UK fan, you've never been to Scotland, Glasgow might be on your bucket list. You never know. Maybe you're a Rangers fan, maybe you're a Celtic fan. Either way, I'm going to walk around wearing my throwback uniform because it's both blue and green. Really confusing, folks. But yeah, really, really chuffed with that. Like I said, make sure if you're not sure about anything else that goes on, join the UK Seahawkers page. There's constant updates. We'll be giving you updates on every single pod as well. And Seahawker of the Month is back. You can check your inboxes, cast your votes. It'll be coming from your chapter president, and that you can give your nomination to someone who does good charitable work for the Seahawks, who likes to increase their chapter members or just as a booster, whatever you feel. There you go. UK Seahawk is still proud car carrier members. I'm looking forward to getting my new one as well. Shall we talk about some players maybe re-signing, maybe outgoing? What should we start with? The happy or the sad?
Let's do the Ernest Jones stuff first, because we've had 2 bits of Ernest Jones news this week. So going back a few days, Ian Rappaport had mentioned that the negotiations had paused and Ernest Jones would be likely to hit free agency. And it didn't ring completely accurate with me or completely true, because how often have we seen players sit down to negotiate a contract and it get done on the first visit to the table? And if it had, would that not indicate that we'd probably just overpaid?
Have all this cap.
I'll stop you there. Sign this. Have it all. The keys, the keys to the city. Have it all.
The kingdom.
Yeah, I just don't think that the chances that what he wanted and what we wanted to pay for that, and the amount of years and the structure of it, and the promises of what we're going to do with the organization, how we're going to build the defense, the chances that all of that aligns and it suits everyone on the first visit to the table is so incredibly unlikely. I'd have been far more interested in a story that said we were thrashing it out and trying to work on a deal for Ernest Jones that means we can build a roster around him, not just give him the paycheck of his life and we're now going to suffer for it for 4 years, no matter what he puts on, whatever he puts out on the field. So that was weird good news, in my opinion. It hit everyone in the fields and emotionally dragged people down because of the way he finished that post by saying he's now going to test free agency. Free agency doesn't start till March. What do you mean? Like, there's plenty of time.
He wants to stay with Seattle. He's been very vocal about wanting to stay. So we said he wants Mike Mack to be his coach for the rest of his career. He believes in the direction of this team. He's become a leader in that locker room, and he's only been there half a season. He wants to get into OTAs, the preseason, and really start to gel with whoever we bring in, whoever we draft, what Mike Mack wants to do and how he wants to evolve it going forward. It'll get done. I just think that, again, it was one of those where Seahawks Twitter just blew up. Like, oh my God, he doesn't want to be here anymore. We can't offer him the money. We can't afford him. No.
It was a slow day, I think.
Yeah, it was a very slow news day, but let's face it, we've got a few of those coming up now for us. Now the season's finished, although we started it with a bang with the grub firing. Let's see what else comes about. So for
Yeah,
us,
and
Ernest Jones will resign.
yeah, and the second piece of news was that following the game on Sunday, when he was interviewed in the locker room, he said that he was really positive. He believes the deal will get done. He's really excited about getting some consistency with his young family, staying in one spot, committing to Seattle. He said all the right things, and he basically indicated that based on what had happened at the first sit down, he was really confident that a deal was going to be struck. And Mike Mack echoed that today with his conference. He said that he's really confident that the Seahawks fans are going to see plenty of Ernest Jones going forward. And meant it in a Seahawks jersey, not a Rams one. Like because most of our exposure to him has been in a Rams jersey. So yeah, no, I think that completely dispelled all the negativity around that. If you've seen and listened to any of that, so we've had two bits of news. One was quite incendiary and blew up Twitter and had a lot of people calling for John Schneider's head if we don't, renew. And then both of them have moved to dispel that and said that they're really hopeful that the deal's going to get done, and that's a massive thing for us. So that's where we are with that, I think.
We've got some interesting comments coming into the so what we'll do, because this is a slightly different format to what we usually do. We've not got 12 talking points. We've not got the Discord member musings. I'm sorry, I've not had a chance to check because I've been back at work today and it's been mental. Same for Mitch. So anything that goes up in that chat, we will make sure we discuss today. I've don't worry, Mitch. I've started a few.
I can see.
The next player I want to talk about is, I think it weighs heavy on everyone's heart that it may have been his last ever Seahawks game, and that's Tyler Lockett. I've spent my free time today daydreaming and thinking about what could make him stay. Why would he stay? Why would Mike Mack want him to stay? And why wouldn't he? And I've come up with this. Stay. Mike Mack wants a veteran presence and a settling presence in that wide receiver room who can keep progressing people like JSN, Bobo, anyone else that we may draft, and he will help maintain DK's level head. Pro. Cons. Why he won't stay. Cap hit. Also, the fact that Mike Mack wants us to be a bigger, more physical team, which could really hinder his opportunities, because in year 2, JSN has bulked up. He is ready to take those hits, and he is ready to try and yak it up. DK, big physical receiver. Lockett, he's outright said he just wants to preserve his body. He's about to have a baby girl. Congratulations, Tyler Lockett. Welcome to the Girl Dad Club. And he doesn't want to get further down the line with his kids having CTE or, something that can affect him being a good dad or a good husband. I think that is going to weigh really heavy on whether we re-sign him or not. They'll look at the cap, first of all. I don't know I need to do some more research as to what we'll get due to save if we do cut him. I don't know what his trade value will be, if any. Pardon?
Not much.
Well, no.
Do you want me to just briefly describe what we've got left on his contract so you can...
Go on. I was hoping you'd jump in with that.
Yeah, so it's currently 30 million he's owed next year. 13 million of the 30 is bonuses that he's already been paid. So if he was to retire tomorrow, we would still be paying him 13 million pounds in bonuses he's already received. So he's had that money, but because of the restructures, that's been spread across years that have not yet happened. And 13 million is already due to him no matter what we do. Trade, cuts, retirement. So 17 million is the damage, and pre-June or post-June cuts affects how much of that we save. So there will be an opportune time to cut him. I do not think that that's going to be the play. He either retires a Seahawk or they add another void year on or extend by a year, spread out that bonus over a longer period to lessen that hit, and lower that cap number down to something like 21, 22 rather than 30, and allow him to be that yin to Metcalf's yang with the aggro versus the calm. However, I will say this. I think if you were looking at the offensive weapons we have, part of the reason that tight ends and running backs are underutilized is the fact that we have 3 premium wide receiver targets. Some of that could have been Bobo, some of it could have been Charbonnet or Ken or McIntosh or Fant or Barnett. There's so many mouths to feed. We almost benefit from losing a highly paid wide receiver 3, pick up one that's hitting free agency for 10 million, someone like a Bourne, or, there's so many around the league that are serviceable 600 yards, 5 touchdown a year guys that we could pay a third of that money and not feel like we're wasting our cap not targeting them when we target a tight end instead.
I just keep Bobo and Derek Young, and then draft someone. You've got like Cody White who comes in and does bits. There's plenty of people out there.
Winston Jr. and players like that. They've been on the fringes for so long. Give them a bit part, elevate someone from the practice squad, have them as an option, and use your tight ends more. We are too heavily invested in skill positions that our trenches suffer. We need to address that balance. And when we drop down to having 2 premium wide receivers rather than 3, that will actually have a really big impact on the way we restructure the distribution of our cap.
Yeah. Well, we've got some comments happening in the. We'll have to get to these soon. But I agree. As much as I want to see Lockett, he should retire as a Seahawk. If I was working in the Seahawks, sort of, the front office, I'd say, look, you retire. This is what you get anyway. However, if you stay in Seattle and you become our priority real estate agent for anyone that signs with us, we will work out a deal where your commission can incentivize you heavily to stay and still do whatever. Just put it out there. A little bit business savvy. I think rugby team Saracens used to do it to increase players' wages, where they'd have investments on their side hustles in property and stuff. Why can't we? I don't know if there's anything against it, especially if he retires. Doesn't matter. But yeah, before we go any further, as we are proud supporters of the Robbing Cancer Trust, I'd just like to have a 1-minute word from them, and then we'll talk about the boring news, the win against the Rams yesterday. Yeah.
There was a game, was there?
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought it was an exhibition.
It's all right.
End of season exhibition.
Here's a quick word from the RCT.
I want to take a minute just to introduce you our charity partner for the pod, the Robbing Cancer Trust. The Robbing Cancer Trust is the UK's germ cell cancer community. For those who don't know what germ cell cancer is, that is testicular and ovarian cancer, and the RCT was set up following the family tragedy, which sadly saw them lose their son and brother to germ cell cancer. Germ cell cancer is something that can affect anyone at any time, and the RCT, Robbing Cancer Trust, do a fantastic job creating awareness through the various campaigns like Talking Bollocks and Not Overreacting. If you or a member of your family have been affected or think you may be affected by it, please visit their website, therobbingcancertrust.org, to see how you can spot the signs, how you can manage it, and become part of the community. And if you'd like to help fundraise or give anything to them, by all means, that would be absolutely fantastic.
There you go. Big shout out to the RCT there. Still supporting them, and we'll continue to support them. Great charity. Now, there was a game yesterday. It was Seahawks against a bunch of second stringers and my most hated quarterback in the league, in Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, and we buried him in the turf a number of times. I love it.
Oh, I'm so happy. I can't. I don't know why, but I can't stand him. It's just something about him. But still, the Seahawks came away with a 30-25 victory. And at that horrific shared stadium in LA, which leaves us with a 10-7 record. 10-7. Did we say 10-7 in our preseason pods? We were either 10-7 or 11-6.
I think we were 10-7. I don't think we were as bad as 9-8.
We said they were a double-digit team. We said they were a double-digit win team. Just a pity most of those wins came on the road, isn't it?
Yeah, 7-1 on the road, weren't we? Shit, crazy.
Next season, let's hope that comes back to looming. So, looking at this game yesterday, I think, again, it just encapsulated the offensive struggles that Grubb had, we can say now, had, past tense, stringing together drives. And I know Bryce will talk to this, that there was no rhyme or reasoning to his drives. He did not sequence anything to set up the next play. We saw a bit more running yesterday, which was lovely to see. I mean, Charbonnet had 14 carries, McIntosh had 7, and then you had 2 from Gino and 1 from JSN. But apart from that, even though Gino threw 4 TDs, they were nice TDs, I wasn't overawed. We were playing a bunch of backups and still only won by 5 points.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
I think you always play to your opposition, though, don't you? I think sometimes when you line up and you see Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and players like that, and Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, and you look across the the offensive or defensive line, you see people like that, you step it up. I think sometimes you play to your opponent a little bit and also our secondary, we got gashed up by Garoppolo at times. But let's not forget the fact that we were absolutely banged up in the secondary, and it got worse throughout the game. So, and at times this year, that's been our weak point. You know, Woolen has been good sometimes, and then the rest of the time he's been the opposite end of that scale. Trey Brown's fallen off a cliff. It's
so sad to see, because I really, really liked him coming out of college, and I thought, before his injuries, he played all right, and he's just not been the same since.
The scheme hasn't suited him, I don't think, and he's had a down year. But yeah, I mean, we came out winning the game, which is nice. It hasn't affected our draft pick, which is cool. It was nice. It was nice knowing that it wasn't really going to affect us, win or lose. And it means that we finished Mike Mack's first league season 4-2 in our own division. And one of the key things that we mentioned at the beginning of the season was that we want to see some more divisional wins and not get swept. Well, the good news is nobody swept us this year. 1-1 against the Niners, 1-1 against the Rams, 2-0 we swept the Cards. So that in itself was a brilliant thing that came out of that game yesterday. That saw that picture completed. And it sings to a good rivalry with a bunch of young, good coaches in this league, in our division even. So it's a first chapter of what's going to be a really interesting book, I think.
Mitch, look at you. Not the pod. You're not the prophet of doom, but silver linings all over that. That statement was all, it's going to be fun. No. And I agree. I completely agree. I think yesterday, I mean, Gino, it was his career day in thrown touchdowns, 4 TDs in a game. And there were some lovely ones as well. The one that he spun out of, when he spun out of the pressure to throw to DK over the middle, I thought was just perfect. I really liked his check down option to Barner as well. What else were we looking at? Oh, the Noah Fant one. Oh, how Noah Fant came down without hurting his neck, beyond me. But Gino threw that to the only place where Noah Fant would be able to get it, and no one else could. And then you had the Bobo touchdown as well, which was perfectly placed. And Gino said, if Bobo's in the red zone or the end zone, throw him the ball. I think the conversation of should Gino stay needs to die a death right now, because if we get a decent OC and he can agree to terms that will allow us to improve players around him and the team, just all you've got to do is say, look, we'll pay you this, but I promise we'll get you this type of O-line. I think Gino will snap it up.
I'm fine with Gino for the next year or two. What I'm not fine with is the lack of planning for life without Gino.
Yeah.
I can't defend decision making at our franchise that says this perennial backup quarterback that has become a passable, above average
Bridge.
NFL quarterback is going to be with us for the next 4 or 5 years. We're not planning to protect him better or give him an understudy. That for me is inexcusable, and it goes back such a long way with us not drafting prospect quarterbacks. That part of it's inexcusable. I've got no problem getting behind Gino, but on a match day, because I know he's got magic in those fingers. He's got a mistake in him too, but
as we all know.
But for 90% of a game, he will give you dimes, and he's become an expert at dodging a lot of pressure, which who knew it happens when you get a lot of practice.
I was going to say he's like Neo from the Matrix half the time, just dodging rushes. But I mean, a lot of comments coming in here, so I'll chuck these ones up.
Sure.
So from Amy, Mitch, agreed. We need a plan plus Gino. Bryce, Gino can stay, but you need to have the bridge. And I think, Bryce, you said this on your pod with Dan. You're standing on the Gino bridge, and it's half complete because the front office is not completed the other side of the bridge.
Agreed.
It's true. I think this draft is not, and Mitch will correct me because he's our draft expert. This is not the draft for us to go looking for. Don't raise your eyebrows. For us to go looking for our next franchise QB. To be honest, I don't see Shedeur Sanders as a franchise QB. To be honest, I just don't think he's got enough arm talent in him to carry a team. That's just my hot take, and I've watched a lot of Colorado, and he flashes, but I find him very Joe Milton-y without the cannon of an arm.
I don't want the Coach Prime circus coming to Seattle.
Oh God! Don't want it. Could you imagine?
I just don't want it. No, I just don't want it. And also, as you say, there's wild inconsistent. There's a high ceiling, but there's wild consistency with.
And we're too far away. We've got 18. We're at the 18th pick. There's no one's ever going to do that unless there are some really glaring issues.
Cam Ward is going to go. He's going to go early, and I don't think he's fully justified going early. I mentioned to Bryce at the beginning of the year when we were having a little Discord chat about quarterbacks that Cam Young, and he just said his name. What am I doing here?
Cam Ward,
thank you. I said to him that Cam Ward was my guy to watch this year, and sure enough, he's been one of the biggest risers. But my reasoning for that, and I'll have to go through my Discord conversation with him to find out exactly how I put it, but year on year, he'd improved massively. He'd had a season where he'd thrown a bunch of touchdowns, but also an equal amount of interceptions. The next year, his ball placement and his decision-making had improved, and he looked a better player. He looked like he'd be a second or third round pick this year. He got that move to the Hurricanes he played for this year, right? Instead of the Cougars, yeah. And he's looked a different player, but the NFL scouts will be seeing that progression, the fact that he's highly coachable, and think that there is a high ceiling because of that. He has his technical issues, and I'm sure Bryce will list them ad nauseum, but he has his technical issues, but he looks coachable. Shedeur Sanders does not. And that's the top end of this quarterback draft. There's a bunch of players like Jackson Dart, who I love, Riley Leonard. There's guys you can get day 2, 3, and just take a shot, keep them in the quarterback room, and the franchise, the fans will know that we have made an investment into that room. There is something happening in the background. We've taken a shot. That will make a lot of people a lot more content. It's the lack of taking any kind of shot that kind of exacerbates that tension with Gino.
Sorry. So, friend of the pod, previous guest host, True Drew, has just come in and this just cracked me up. So, we were all here looking at QBs in the draft, and for all we know, John Schneider is on the phone with the Titans for Will Levis. Wow. I'm not sure I can agree with that or get on board with it. But yeah, I think the Geno bridge needs to happen. There does need to be a plan in place. We do need to start looking. But I think we're all fully aware now that Sam Howell is not the one. He wasn't the one in Washington. And everyone went, oh, well, maybe he's throwing so many interceptions because he's asked to throw the ball so much. No, he's throwing so many interceptions because his ball placement is awful. He can't make his read properly, and he'll throw to whoever he likes the most on the field. I can't get on board with anyone saying that Sam Howell should take off from Geno.
No, but we did pick up a very cheap backup quarterback this year with a full season of NFL experience, and that in itself is worth something. And it's what we had previously with Drew Lock as well. You know, we had a guy who, and prior to that, who did we have? We had Geno sat behind Russ. So there has been consistency in who we take as a backup to our number one quarterback. It's a guy with NFL experience, you know, a highly drafted player that didn't quite make it, that's got some NFL experience. There's been consistency there, but none of those backups have looked like the future. That is the problem. There's no project there. There is just an experienced backup. That's what we've always done.
Yeah, I tend to find it's a very hit and hope mentality. When you go for a backup QB, if they're highly drafted and flamed out, and you give them a chance, cool, or highly regarded, and nothing's come of them, and you go, we'll give you a chance at our backup. Fine, work with Geno, but that's not going to be the case for everyone. Some people flame out because they're not cut out for the league. And my big fear now is unless we really start seeing some changes in the mentality, there might not be that bridge. And it may be Tom Brady played till he was in his 40s. Geno doesn't have much tread. I hate that phrase, by the way. Geno's not got a lot of tread in his tyres or a lot of wear in his tyres. He can roll out for more. Yeah, of course he can. And then we'll get him sacked 40 times a season behind a shoddy O-line because we refuse to invest in that as well. No, it just doesn't work. I think yesterday just sort of lifted everyone up from we've gone out on a win. We're a 10-7 team. You can hold your heads high in the fact that you're a win. Mike McDonald is the only first-year coach in Seahawks history to go 10-7.
Yeah,
his first season. Well, also because he's the only new coach in Seahawks history since they moved to a 17-game season. So, don't want to put the kibosh on there.
Why have you done that? Why did you do that? Man.
Yeah, sorry.
Can we just take a sec to mention Leonard Williams on his 11-sack season? First man to hit double digits for the Seahawks since Jaron Reed and Frank Clark in the same season. Yeah, that's wild. And let's also mention JSN with a franchise equaling 100 receptions in a season. So he shares that with Tyler Lockett. That is amazing. JSN also surpassed Largent and Metcalf's record of 6 games in a row with 67 yards minimum.
Yeah.
And he not only beat the 6 games, he took it to 8. So he's really stuck. He's set the new standard. DK Metcalf joined Jerry Rice with his 900 yards and was it 900 yards minimum 60 targets in a season 60 catches in a season for however many years in a row it was. It was a staggering stat. There's been a lot of stuff. Also, big shout out to our edge rushers who have really kicked on this year. I think if Mafe had a healthy season and Nwosu had a healthy season, we would have been absolutely unreal off the edge. Derek Hall has been sublime. Is it 9 sacks for him this year as well? 6 for Mafe despite the injuries.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this is the thing, that there is so you are getting flamed in the comments by Jonas, by the way.
So Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Oh, one of those
Jesus,
good receivers.
I
was just on a rant. Sorry, name.
That's like, you're on a roll. You do more of that, my friend.
Yeah, tolerate it.
I think there are so many positives to take away from this. I mean, the only positive from Grubb is that he managed to put JSN in so many situations to have that type of season. But no one else really got a bite of the pie in the same game. It'd be half of DK, then half of JSN, or just all JSN, or just force the ball to DK. And where are these other receivers? Or run game, don't really want them. Anyway, before we go on too much for a rant, we finished 10-7. We're not in the playoffs, so we've got a lot of off-season content coming your way. Before we get to all of these comments, a massive thank you to everyone who's tuned in. If you haven't and you'd like to, by all means, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share it among your Seahawks friends. We are a Seahawks pod by 12s, for 12s, with 12s, and that means that if you want to come on, all you've got to do is slide into our DMs or join our Discord. Did you like what I did there, Mitch? Perfect segue.
Like
yeah, I'm a pro at this now. Yeah, that was pure sarcasm. Slide into our DMs, hit us up in the Discord, and let us know if you want to come on the off season. We're going to have some fantastic guests. We are already talking to Mr. Bryce Coops about coming on to do a end of season wrap up. We're going to have some draft talk. We're going to have some more guests. We're going to be talking any news that comes out, because we're all going to be scrabbling around for everything. There's going to be a lot of hyperbole. There's going to be a lot of mock drafts. It's mock draft season, Mitch. I'm waiting to have some quiet time away from my 5-year-old to sit and do one properly after I've done some proper research, and then I'll give it to you to just tell me I'm rubbish as usual. But yeah.
Standard.
All right. Anyway, your comments, everyone that's come in. There was loads that have come through, some new people that have started commenting. So thank you very much. I'm going to start right from the top. So Gary, when we're talking about the O-line, Gary, regular viewer and listener, member of the Discord, to have a consistently good run game, you need to at least have an average O-line, as all the good offensive teams have. John Schneider needs to change how his views on the O-line are. It has to be a priority, surely. Yes, is the answer. I think we have banged that drum, and the skin is wearing very thin, very much the same as every Seahawks fan and podcaster now. It needs to be a priority going forward. There needs to be more. And from Jonas, one of the most negligent acts from Grubb was not using one of Geno's strengths, play action. Agreed. Yeah. An emphatic nod from Mitch there, and I think that's something that's been addressed by a lot of people. Bryce, Greg Bell has just reported that the decision to fire Grubb was Mike Mack with John Schneider's support, which is interesting because John Schneider stated he had control of coaches when Pete got fired. I think that's the investment that they're putting in Mike Mack. He signed a 6-year contract. He's going to be here for the long term. He has been very quick to say, I don't want these players, this linebacker doesn't fit, this doesn't fit. If he's saying, I need to remold this in my vision, for my purpose, then John Schneider needs to support that as well. Do you agree, Mitch?
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. And I think the decisions this year to cut certain players and make bold decisions have been really well supported by John Schneider. And so far, all of those decisions have bared fruit. So John Schneider probably had the meeting with Mike Mack and just said, yeah, okay, if this isn't what you envisage for your offense, go get your guy. I back it, which is great. It empowers Mike Mack. He's had a good year and he's got the backing of his GM. That's empowering.
GM, players, and most of the fan base now as well. From Gary again. So, who's going to be the new OC? Cannot answer that question yet. Depends who else gets fired.
Well,
Are you going to say Dougie P?
No. Well, I mean, it's a candidate. I think Mike Kafka's already getting interviews around the league, but I think that could be quite a good fit potentially. Vastly experienced NFL level OC who can be handed over the reins to the offense. I can see that being a tempting one. There's Pete's as well, and could always get Schottenheimer back. I hear Waldron is, looming. Do you know what's funny? I actually think we'd have been a better offense with Waldron this year than we were with Grubb.
Statistically, I was reading something earlier. I think it was points per drive, or I can't remember what it was, but we averaged sort of 1 point whatever this season, and the best we got under Waldron was like 2.07. I can't remember what the exact stat was, but Waldron was actually better than Grubb anyway. Which pains me to say because I thought he was crap. Oh, just a very quick one. As I've just looked at the rest of them, Bryce has said if you're going to use a mock draft simulator, use Walk the Mock, and if you want to sign up for the full version, use code 12Talk, and I believe it's 10% off.
Yeah,
there you go. 12Talk. And Gary Waldron, please. I'm going back to all these ones I had saved, Gary. I'm not having any more Waldron talk on here. Amy Holmes. There you go, Amy. I wouldn't be sad to get Dickerson back as an O-line coach.
I love that from Amy. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
When we were chopping coaches, there was a number of them that I really hoped we'd keep, and Dickerson was one of them. So I love that you've given Dickerson a shout out there. That's a great call. Who was the Izzo? Izzo was the old special teams guru, and I was so sad to see him go as well, because I thought ever since he was given, the keys to the special teams, he was outstanding. Yeah. He got a real tune out of our special teams consistently. So when he went, that was another one. But yeah, Dickerson for sure. And I love his hair. I'm no man to talk about hair, granted, but that man has got a serious set of hair.
So if you go back onto the OC talk, Jonas, in response to Gary, you can imagine Jake Peaks. He's an in-house solution. He's worked under Mike Mack for a year now. He's definitely in the conversation. I think that's something that's been brought about by quite a few people, but. I genuinely, in my heart of hearts now think that Mike McDonald is going to want to hire an OC as the head coach of the offense, because he still has work to do on his defense. Once he gets his defense mastered, he gets the right players and pieces in place, and he has them all working to his scheme, following his philosophy, and it becomes their lifeblood. I think he can then take a step back and look at the rest. For now, he wants to have an OC that he can go, there's the keys, go and do your stuff, go and help win me games. Didn't get that with Grubb, because Grubb wouldn't work in a symbiotic manner. And I think he's going to look for someone who potentially was an ex-head coach or is a very, very, very experienced OC.
Yeah, Brian Daboll got the backing of the GM today, didn't he? So Daboll's not going to be the guy. No. Well, as you mentioned earlier, yes, but they did very publicly come out and say that they weren't happy with what they saw this year, but they're hoping they're feeling more generous at the end of next season, which is a weird thing to say.
I love it. They might as well stand there in a big black cloak, pointing a bony finger at the head coach, going, "He's got our backing."
Yeah.
No. just stay silent on the matter. Right, we've got a few more comments that we started here. So we'll flip to Bryce quickly. Biggest thing that came out last week that drove me nuts about Grubb was his comments on how he hasn't changed, and that the only thing he learned was to attack scheme and structure versus personnel. It's exactly what we said about that press conference. He did not endear himself to anyone because he basically went, I think I'm fine. I just learned a few things. But obviously not, because you've lost your job after a year. I'm sorry, I would not be that big-headed if that happened to me. On to the talk of what we might expect from Ernest Jones. This is from Jonas again. Patrick Queen as the crown jewel of the free agent linebacker class last year. Got $13 million with the Steelers. Jordan Brooks got 8.5 in Miami. I think EJ will be somewhere in the middle. I think
10.6 million APY for me.
Yeah, I like it. I think if he's going to be the franchise linebacker for us for a number of years, I think it's going to be, you might be looking at a 4-5 year deal, keeping him in place for the tenure or for Mike Mack's tenure. I think the remainder of Mike Mack's tenure, he'll want him, and then he will keep looking to keep draft middle linebackers to see if any of them are better than Tyrese Knight. My opinion on it.
Yeah, Tyrese Knight's an interesting one. I mean, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but he did not look like a rookie year linebacker. He was exposed to some horrible defensive play from our unit and some stellar defensive work from our defensive unit, and he's come along so far. If he's linebacker 3 in the middle linebacker room next year because we draft someone, I think that's an incredibly good bit of depth. And because we drafted him so late, for the duration of that rookie deal, we're going to have a really high quality linebacker in that room. So yeah, I think what we've done with Tyrese Knight's been superb. The way we've blooded him sort of slowly behind 2 veterans and then increased his workload and his exposure when they couldn't get it done. I think we've managed him magnificently this year, and it will set him up for a superb career in the NFL, whether it's with us or not.
Hopefully no more special teams as well, because if he does keep playing special teams, someone needs to teach him, if you're going to pat down a ball, hand under that way, not that way. So the dejection on Dixon's face. Oh,
I know you've already done this in this pod, but that ball went forward, 90 degrees the other way.
Yeah.
And it was like he was poised to do what he needed to do based on the roll of the ball, and then just as he committed to it, it went the other way, and it was like, why?
Just jump in the air. I don't care if you're in the end zone. Jump in the air with nothing touching and just flick it back to anyone.
He's guilty of trying to make inches rather than feet. It was like, yeah. I could really maximize it. Oh, we got nothing.
Yeah, I know.
It was bad.
Amy, disagree with the lack of tight end running back usage. Had to do with the wide receiver room. Grubb was uber focused on one person at a time. Yeah, we addressed that. I think. I don't know. I think it was. I mean,
Amy's disagreed with me there based on my comment about having 3 wide receivers that we were trying to feed, and I didn't necessarily mean that we hadn't targeted our tight ends and running backs enough. It's just that when you've got that many mouths to feed, inevitably, if you are, and as we did, if you are focusing on one player for a game plan or whatever, or starting the game targeting one and then switch to another, you've still got more players to go around and a huge amount of cap given to a player that is waiting his turn to get some targets. If you remove that, everyone else gets 10-15% more. You know, that's my point. You can utilize the cap better and use it for, you know, investing in the line, and you're still not going to lack for high quality targets. Granted, Tyler Lockett is his own entity, and he's been a unique and valuable and consistent asset for our team, and we all love him. But I do think you can replace him by committee.
Yeah, Well, you look at the amount of teams that have running back by committee and still seem to be successful.
Yeah.
Which, based on what we've seen at the end of this season with McIntosh and Charbonnet, I wouldn't be opposed to that anyway from us, because I'm still really high on McIntosh, and I think Charbonnet is just one of those. He's one of those that needs to get rolling. You can't give him a bit part, give him more and more runs, and he will create more and more.
Give me two £10 million linemen over a 20 million wide receiver 3 this year, and watch our run game excel. Honestly, that some of the if we'd have renewed, actually I don't even. I'm happy with who we let go. I know they got heavily paid. Yeah, Delu got paid a lot of money.
Hasn't he made the Pro Bowl this year as well?
Yeah, he's done all right, but he still wouldn't have been who I'd invest in. But there were free agent signings that went for around 10 million. I think. See, how much did Zietler get at the Lions? Because he's had an unbelievable year.
Oh God, you're talking to the wrong man, because he's Pro Bowl as well, isn't he? Although if the Lions keep going this way, he's not going to be playing the Pro Bowl; he'll be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, he was a name that we were linked with a lot, and he went to the Lions, which he probably would have gone to the Lions for 2 million less than he'd have gone to us for, because of that Super Bowl ring potential. But that money, all I'm trying to say is that money could have enabled the offense to sing rather than us having one extra jewel in the crown. And that is the kind of adjustment I think we really need to start seeing. It's just a shame that it will come at the expense potentially of someone like Tyler Lockett, who's been an unbelievable servant and will be celebrated by the 12s for decades as a player like Doug Baldwin. Yeah, just like Doug Baldwin, he'll be held in such high regard. He'll be a Ring of Honor and everything else. But we need to make the adjustment of where we're paying the cap out, I think.
Yeah, agreed. So the next one, Jonas, there's a series on this one. The Seahawks were 7-1 on the road in 2024. Who cares about the home game in the postseason? Lumen field advantage is dead. Quickly followed by Amy. If my computer allows me to put it on. Oh no. What happened there, Mitch? You swapped sides.
I don't know. I got set the stage for
magic. Jonas, so Amy to Jonas, it will come back when we start winning more. I sincerely hope so, because as a spectator from the UK, I enjoy watching games where I can hear the 12s and see how they affect a game. However, the last few years, that has just not been there. And it's disheartening more than anything. But like Amy said, but when we start winning and we start playing a good brand of football again, we get an identity. I think the noise will come back.
Did you see what the Vikings did this week, by the way?
What, with all the celebrations?
They bought all of the tickets off people that were selling them from the Vikings, and then resold them to their own fans. They spent, was it $3 million buying all the tickets that were available behind their bench. That whole block, they bought everything that was up for sale and redistributed it to Vikings fans, just to make sure that section of their support was all them for that one game, that last game of the season. What a move that is. And see, the Seahawks can look at that and say, well, here's an issue, here's a potential solution. We might lose £200,000 a home game doing it, but if it's going to cost us $2 million to fix that this year and restore that and get success, we might not need to keep doing it, because as success comes, like Amy says, it will flood back. People will stop selling those
tickets.
It might not cost you $2 million if you keep winning.
I've got two more comments. So first of all, Deadeye Knight, thank you very much. The first time I've seen you commenting on our videos. I got a feeling they're really going to improve the O-line big time this off-season, once and for all. We all hope so. We hope and pray, because it's the most infuriating thing to watch when you've got a QB who we've seen is talented enough to do bits in the league. When you've got a running back room like we have, just everything just evaporates when the O-line is like Swiss cheese or a turnstile. Now, look, it's fair on the other players. We seem to be wasting some players in their prime. Imagine if we had enough space or enough time for DK to actually run the correct route rather than ad-libbing, and Gino be able to throw it to him on a deep ball. Ooh, he would have hit that 1,000-yard mark. Or if we had an O-line that could open up gaps across the middle or through the middle to let K9 or Charbonnet or McIntosh run through. Because yesterday I genuinely saw a run from Charbonnet where he was trying to run through the A gap, B gap, and I'm pretty sure the design run was for the centre and the right guard to try and give him that little bit of space. No, he ended up running into both of our centre and guard and another 2 or 3 Rams players because there was nothing there. So, yeah, that is a hope for all of us. And here we go, True Drew. It's so sad when JSN dropped the 2-point conversion. Also, DK was 8 yards away from 1,000. Oh, like a dagger to the heart, isn't it?
Well, I'm sure they can all look back on some drop catches and blame themselves, to be honest. There's been a number of moments for both players. I mean, it's going to happen anyway, but like, it might come down. You know, the book shuts on the last game of the season, right? And it might end up 8 yards away, but there will be moments throughout the season for all of the team where they knew they could have done more. So blame themselves, improve.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. But anyway, with that, I think we are done, Mitch. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in again. You guys, we love doing this when we have a lot of interaction from you. This is what this pod's all about. Again, if you are new, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You'll be updated on all of our off-season pods and everything else. You can follow us on X, Blue Sky, Instagram. We have a Facebook group as well. Just search 12 Talk Podcast or on the latter 3 at 12 Talk Pod. Very easy, no complications there. You can also join our Discord. Mitch, can you pop the link in?
Just done it, actually. It's in there.
Oh, let's see. Unagi. Oh, you're on the other side of me now. I don't know which way I'm supposed to point. That way. There you go.
That's really messed you up, hasn't it?
Throw me up. Throw me off. I have no idea what's happening anymore.
I love it.
But yeah, you can join our Discord. You can talk to some of the fantastic people that are in our comments. We have some guests that have been on here before. If you'd like to join, get in the Discord, have a chat with us and let us know. We will be carrying that on all throughout the off season with many rumors, hyperbole. There's going to be mock drafts. There's going to be stats. Mitch, I know you'll be in there dropping in some hot takes on some draft prospects. Can you go 3 years for 3? You've gone 2 for 2 with 2 picks that were bang on in Mike Morris and AJ Barner. Have you got another Michigan man that you're looking at?
Yeah, multiple. But there's a couple of players that I think are nailed on already. But we will cross that when we get to it.
There we go. And we'll be coming to you with more and more stuff throughout the off-season from me, from my podcasting partner in crime, Mitch. We've been the 12 Talk Podcast. Thank you very much. Have an amazing day wherever you are. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Peace.